Okay, I'll say everything one more time. So, for this exam, you should turn in the exam itself with the questions properly answered. Most of this coming from questions that you've asked in class or by email or something like that. You should have notes from every single question and answer period that we've had. But specifically, you should have in your notes also evidence that you have asked 5 questions of me at some point during this process. Doesn't need to be all on the same day or even all concerning the same thing, but you should have participated in some way by asking 5 questions at least, and you should have notes for those. And then today, after you've clarified the need statement, gotten some more information so that you have a list of objectives, you should now take that list of objectives for this project and you should ask questions today of me to decide what of your objectives are needs, what of them are wants of mine, and that's what today is all about. Then you have the rest of the day to finish up the objective tree and turn in the exam. So, who has questions for me? Oops, I'm off camera. I'll move to on camera here. Okay. So, anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. What was the video about? Which video?
You said that let's do the exam.
Oh, the video that I recorded was when we had, let's see, did I record last Friday? I think I did.
Yeah.
I think I recorded last Friday because we had a couple of people who were missing. I think you were gone Friday,
Yeah.
right? So we recorded class last Friday when everybody was asking questions concerning the exam, so that so the people who were gone could catch up on it. And that is on, I emailed the link to that, it's on YouTube. If you just go to YouTube, you can find it actually. I can show you where to find my channel on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and search for MPCC Engineer, all one word. Like that. Then you will find a bunch of my things, and this is the one for this semester is the, probably want to go to a playlist though. So this playlist, ENGR1010, has every video I've made from this semester, which is just the one on Friday, 9/29. So this will give you all the information to get for everything else that you need concerning this project. So yeah. And if you have any other questions, you're free to come by my office or send me an email or whatever else. But that's where that's at. Excuse me. Well, who has any questions? Does anybody have any questions for me concerning the information that you've gathered from me previously, the research you've done, and making your list of objectives for your objective tree?
Is the owner okay with voiding the warranty, or do we still not know?
I'm not sure about that yet, but you should be able to make a design. We're not finalizing a design yet. We're just trying to find out what is the most important thing for the. We haven't even gotten into any design things yet at all. Actually, we're just researching the things that we want to get done, right? So you may have gone out and researched a bunch of stuff that are solutions, but we're not, I mean, this test doesn't even ask about any solutions. It's just asking about the objectives, the things that you want to get done, right? So throughout the entire engineering process, you will be thinking of ideas, and you want to jump to that design process, and you may even start researching them early on. But at this point, we're not even at that point yet. We're just talking about objectives and prioritizing objectives in the process. So just the very beginning of this engineering design process where we're at.
Are there any specific features that you know that the scooter owner does not want or would not like?
Does not want? Are you talking about the existing features or stuff that might be added to it?
If there's things that we would maybe make as our objectives that are useless to him or that he wouldn't like.
That's kind of an open-ended question. I'm pretty sure I can't answer that without specifics. I mean, I think that the only way to answer that question is if you said, this is an objective that I think is important. It seems like it's important to you. Do you like that idea or not? Or how important is this to you? You know, that's the only kind of question I think I could answer as far as, since I don't know the objectives you've written down so far. I don't know what you've actually classified as an objective.
So is there everything on the bike now that he doesn't like, that he didn't really care if he got rid of it or not?
I don't think that he would really, I don't think he would really mind if there was a new way for it to accelerate. So the grip accelerator, I don't think he'd really mind if there was a new way to brake, but there might be some convincing that, I mean, it would have to be a really good alternative. I mean, so remember that the whole point of this exercise is to take things that you've already determined are things that need to be done. We need to get this done. This is a problem that exists, and we want to fix it. But how important is that problem? How important is it that we fix this problem versus another problem? Yes, sir.
So when it comes to getting around the house, being able to get out if the scooter tips over and the scooter not wheeling, could you rate those in order of importance to you?
So tipping over and not doing a wheelie?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Which one's more important? I think I'd have to say that tipping over is more important than not doing a wheelie, but not doing a wheelie is almost as important, maybe even as important. It's tough to say because, being frightened at this age is almost as bad as actually, going through the traumatic experience at this age. So just the fright alone is bad enough. So probably they're equal. Probably there's no real difference between almost falling over and falling over. We don't want either one to happen. And if we can prevent that from happening, both of them from happening, we'd like to make that a high priority.
The wheelie bar on the back, do you know how far it is away from the ground?
I don't. We'd have to look it up. But can't remember how to look up the history on this thing. We look on the back here, we can kind of get an idea that it looks like it's maybe a couple inches and it might be adjustable. I don't know. Doesn't say here. It's got a ground clearance of 3 inches, so I'm going to guess that it's at that height or possibly a little bit lower. Any other questions to clarify what objectives are most important to me?
As far as like making the scooter more stable, like making sure it doesn't tip over for like through mechanical means versus making the throttle just less sensitive, which one would you prefer?
Probably the tipping over is more important to me. I think that that is an absolute must for me to use this thing. I must have it so it doesn't tip over. Having the throttle changed is probably not so important. I can use the throttle, and being the prideful old man that I am and don't want to have any extra help or anything else, I probably want to try to continue to use the throttle until I, absolutely can't move my hands at all. But like I said earlier, if somebody came up with an idea for the throttle that I really liked, I could probably be convinced. But probably more important is the tipping over. Much more important. That is a definite must. I'd put the throttle thing kind of on a maybe not kind of thing. Yes, sir.
Priority of the scooter, for you to be able to get around the house, or from getting location to location?
So this is a location to location scooter. Let me show you the scooter really quick again. There's the
I
scooter.
said something about high speed.
Yeah.
Around town.
So this is kind of like a 3-wheeled Vespa for old people. So, or people that have other trouble with mobility. So what was your question again? Sorry.
I was asking if it was more important that you be able to get around the house well on
Yeah.
the scooter, or take it from location to
Yeah, this just goes this stays in the garage when he's not using it. It's definitely a bigger kind of scooter, and the priority for him is that he wants to be able to drive it. He really wants to be able to drive it down the street a few miles per hour and go at max maybe a couple of miles on a trip. But that's quite important to him, being able to drive safely to and from a place down the road at a mile or 2 at the most. Can't imagine much more than that. But
I know
this
you
is
said you had trouble. I know you said he had trouble gripping both the brake and the throttle. If you had to choose one, which one would you prefer? We make easier to operate.
I would have to say, that's a tough choice, because the throttle is the thing that caused the wheelie problem, but the brake, I actually think we have a harder time gripping, because that's his left hand. That's the one that's affected by his stroke, so he has to kind of place his hand on it in just the right way to use it, but still, it's the throttle that caused the problem. So I'm going to say the throttle is more important if you're going to change one of them, even though the brake is probably a little more inconvenient for him, but I don't know. I think that there's probably a way to fix this problem without adjusting the brake or the throttle. I'm just not entirely sure without replacing the brake or throttle. Just not entirely sure what the best way that is. So I think because of that, the priority would probably be to not change either of them. I think that would be a higher priority, but if we have to make this workable, then it would probably be acceptable. So I think that not changing either is probably, I'd put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put that on a priority of probably like an 8, where changing them, replacing them, rebuilding them in some way, maybe kind of on a 5 scale, or even lower, 5 on the scale or lower. But the possibility of maybe altering it, maybe just modifying it slightly so that it works better, that might be more acceptable.
In spite of the weight restrictions for this scooter, do you believe that adding weight to the front of this would be a better choice than trying to build a larger wheelie bar?
Okay, so I guess the question that you're asking is, so what the question you're asking is more of making a decision on how to solve the problem, right? So I guess the answer to that is I don't mind if we add weight to the front of it. That's not a problem. I don't think that I have a preference, one or the other, on those two ideas, but I think it is going to be dependent on how well those ideas work in the testing, and we're not at that point yet. So I guess the answer is I don't mind one or the other. But I would like it to be as unobtrusive as possible. I would like whatever we do to it to not really change the scooter's look too much or how it works too much. So that's probably the best answer for objectives. I don't want there to be too much
Yeah, there's a small one.
too much modification.
Right middle there.
As little as possible.
Big enough.
Sure we can put weights in it if it's not used.
He doesn't use it, so yeah, that would be doable for big enough.
Yeah, that's what it's
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. But it depends on if they say compartment, they mean something that opens or just an ashtray. That part I don't.
Any other questions?
There's a little lip right there.
Yeah.
Would you be able to recognize if the brake system is front wheel or rear wheel?
I don't know whether the brake system is front or rear. That's a good question. No idea. I would assume it's a rear wheel system, since front brake systems going 14 miles an hour are kind of dangerous. It might be all wheels for all I know. Let's see if I can find that out here. Where's my mouse? Doesn't say what the kind of brakes it has, so couldn't say. Don't know. I'm gonna take just a break. I gotta step out for a minute because of my medical issues, but I will be back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Makes sense. Just question.
Yeah.
I haven't taken any notes.
We gotta stay calc and
Dude, I gotta write a freaking poets. I gotta write a speech. Let's do it tomorrow.
What speech?
The second speech we do, so it's the informative one or whatever.
Okay. What are you doing yours over?
I'm not 100% yet. Might do it's either something about space or it's gonna be doing over like seeing eye dogs and how they're trained.
Mine was about the history of science fiction film. It was pretty fun because Mr. Grizzle's a big sci-fi fan.
Well, I've always wondered how like seeing eye dogs are trained and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
that would be cool.
I'll probably do it over there, but I gotta do it tonight.
And David's was over pie, and it was crazy.
Pie,
Yeah,
like
the number.
okay,
Not the
it's like
first.
food. Like,
Yeah.
how the fuck do you get all that history?
Yeah, that wouldn't be as interesting.
I bet you that was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what website are you on?
I don't know, I just put Pride Raptor in Google. There are a bunch of sites selling it. I'm just trying to find one that gives you actual information instead of trying to sell it, which is impossible.
Yeah. No, you can read. I got the warranty information here.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, warranty information is easy to find too.
I have returns, reviews, the specs of it.
Yeah.
Its drive range is 19 miles.
That's pretty good.
This isn't gas, right? This is just battery.
Yeah, that's electric. Yeah, all the sites tell you is that it has a handbrake. What? Yeah. Because wouldn't it be an easy
Okay,
thing-
sorry about that. Any other questions that you have concerning objectives, classifying objectives?
You talked about kind of towards one of the first day or whatever that it was difficult to get out of sometimes whenever it tipped over, like you could get trapped underneath the scooter. But I mean, our goal
Yes.
here is to make it so it doesn't tip over. So how important would it be that we figure out a easier way to get out of if it tips over?
I would say that since not tipping over is most important, then figuring out a new way to get out of it if it does tip over is less important. I just don't want it to tip over. So I would say it's less important, but probably, it's important if we can't figure out a way to keep it from doing a wheelie and tipping. So, I would make it less important than the tipping and the wheelie, but still fairly important. If the other thing can't be done, so it's kind of a dependent thing. More questions? Still got 20 minutes left.
You said early on that the owner of this didn't like how fast it went, and being that limiting the top speed of it would help a little bit with the wheelie thing. Does that make that important that we try to limit the speed of it?
Yeah, I would say that limiting the speed would be a good way to go. It's not something that I need done, but it's certainly a way to go as far as thinking of solutions. And it's certainly connected to the wheelie thing. I don't want it to do a wheelie, and certainly the thing that made it do a wheelie was the quick acceleration. It wasn't really the top speed, it was the quick acceleration. So the top speed is not an issue, and the speed limiting is not an issue as so much as it was a acceleration. It just giving it too much juice all at once, right? So I don't think this thing's ever been up to 14 miles per hour. I don't think it ever will. But the acceleration is the problem.
So how important then would you say that fixing an acceleration problem would be? Like trying to.
So acceleration is certainly an issue, and that needs to be a priority, I think. Is finding a way for this guy not to accelerate quickly is definitely top priority, because that's directly linked to doing the wheelie.
Would you rank that higher than trying to simply stop it from tipping over backwards?
Well, since that's the thing that causes it, I would rank them both the same, I think. I'd give them high top priority, both of them. So they're both one and the same thing, right? Doing a wheelie and accelerating are the same thing. Those are two priorities, two objectives to stop this thing from doing what I don't want it to do. So how we stop it is not really the question we're asking, right? We're just saying what are we trying to do, not how we're trying to do it. How we stop it from doing a wheelie is not what we're trying to classify. We're trying to classify problem we're trying to solve, problems that are important. This really is a fairly simple project, so we're not going to have objectives. We're not going to have like 50 objectives in this thing. We might have, I don't know, 7. It's not going to be a huge objective list. So don't overthink it. Yes, what's your question, Dave?
I was just gonna say, so far I got, it's important that you're able to take this scooter from location to location, that it not wheelie or tip over on you, that if it does, you need to be able to get out. You obviously want to be able to control the scooter. Is there anything else that you need?
Not really. I mean, that sounds right. Yeah. I mean, it's in the details. You know, the details are more like I want to be able to drive it without the threat of it tipping back on me, and I want to be able to. I mean, that's more detail when it comes to control, right? So, I mean, that was really the biggest issue. But we do have these other issues that are kind of related. We have the accelerator, the problem with the accelerator, the problem with the brake. Because if I do accelerate too much, and then all of a sudden going too fast, I'm gonna have to use the brake, right? So those kinds of things. We talked at one point about yeah, that's pretty much it. Anybody have anything else they want to say? Anything else you want to ask? Okay, if you feel like you have enough information from what we've done so far, then you're free to go ahead and get started with all the paperwork concerning the exam. If you still have questions after you've done some more work on this, feel free to email me, and I will answer your questions by email. I will post this video up online for you to peruse at your pleasure. And I guess that's all I've got for you today. Just make sure you get in and get started on this. I mentioned before that I'm expecting like 20 pages for this exam. I'm not expecting any certain number of pages, but I should have significant notes from each person, because we've got 2 meetings that we met where we asked questions, and really we kind of started on Wednesday a little bit, if I remember correctly. So we should have probably 2.5 meetings worth of notes that you've taken concerning discussion and questions and problem and all these things. And those notes don't have to have any particular form. I just want you to turn them in so that I know that you were paying attention and participating. You should highlight any of the questions that you asked so that you can get credit for those. You should, or circle them or something so that I can find them easily. And you should give a complete answer to each one of the questions involving the information that you were able to get out of these discussion sessions. Okay? Now, I've tried to guide the sessions as well as I could, but I've mostly left it up to you. So if you do feel like you didn't quite get everything you need, please email me. Don't just leave it at that. Please email me a question, and I will email an answer to everybody so that everybody gets to participate in that. And besides that, if there are no more questions, I'm assuming there aren't, then we'll be done with class for today. Go ahead and get your exam finished, and we will come back together on Wednesday to do our Rube Goldberg project, which should be a lot more fun than all this book work. We'll get started on doing some designs and stuff for that. So, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the exam. Enjoy the nice weather. We'll see you later.